She stood in that marble lobby, hands trembling as she held a single sheet of paper, while a room full of lawyers stared at her in complete silence. The billionaire leaned forward in his leather chair, eyes locked on hers, and said the words one more time. $2 million. Just read it out loud, right now. And in that moment she realized this wasn't about money at all. Before we continue with this powerful story, I want to invite you to subscribe to Sage Stories if you haven't already. We share real voices and meaningful moments that remind us of our shared humanity. Hit that like button and please leave a comment below sharing your own thoughts or experiences. Your voice matters here. Her name was Amara Williams. And 3 weeks before that moment in the billionaire's office, she was doing exactly what she did every Tuesday morning. She was sitting in the back corner of Monroe Public Library in Baltimore, surrounded by stacks of old books, running her fingers across pages that smelled like dust and time. She was 23 years old, working 2 jobs and spending every free hour in that library because it was the only place that felt like home. Amara had grown up in West Baltimore, raised by her grandmother after her mother passed when she was 7. Her grandmother cleaned houses for a living, came home with aching knees and worn hands, but never once came home without a book. She'd place it on the kitchen table, pat Amara's shoulder and say the same thing every time. Baby, words are power. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Her grandmother had been gone for 2 years now, but Amara still heard her voice every single day. She heard it when she woke up at 5 in the morning to open the coffee shop on Lexington Street. She heard it when she left at noon to clean offices downtown until 8 at night. And she heard it loudest on Tuesday mornings, her one day off when she'd take the bus to Monroe Library and lose herself in everything from philosophy to poetry, from history to science. The librarian, Mrs. Chen, had noticed her months ago. She'd watched this young woman come in week after week, reading with a focus that was almost fierce, taking notes in a battered composition notebook, whispering words to herself like she was tasting them. One morning, Mrs. Chen walked over and set a book down in front of Amara. It was old, leather-bound, with gold lettering so faded you could barely read it. This just came in from an estate donation, Mrs. Chen said quietly. I thought you might appreciate it. It's rare, 17th century philosophical texts. Most people wouldn't even know how to approach it. Amara looked up surprised. Why me? Mrs. Chen smiled. Because I see you. I see how you read. You don't just read words, you read meaning. Amara opened that book carefully, and what she found inside took her breath away. The language was old, complex, layered with Latin phrases and syntax that twisted and turned like a river. But she understood it. Not all of it, not at first, but enough. Enough to feel something shift inside her, like a door opening in her mind. She spent weeks with that book. She cross-referenced phrases, taught herself Latin roots, traced the arguments line by line, and slowly the text revealed itself to her. It was a philosophical treatise on justice, on the voices of the unheard, on the responsibility of those with power to listen to those without it. It moved her so deeply she could barely put it into words. One afternoon, Mrs. Chen sat down across from her. You've been with that book for a month now. What do you think? Amara looked up, eyes bright. I think whoever wrote this understood something most people never do. That listening is harder than speaking. That real power isn't in having answers. It's in hearing the questions no one else is asking. Mrs. Chen nodded slowly. Then she said something that would change everything. There's a man who donated this collection. His name is Edward Calloway. He's a billionaire, made his fortune in tech and publishing. He's also obsessed with rare texts and the people who can truly understand them. He has a challenge he's been running for 5 years, and no one has ever completed it. Amara frowned. What kind of challenge? Mrs. Chen pulled out a business card, set it on the table. He offers $2 million to anyone who can read and interpret a specific document in his collection. It's written in an old dialect, mixed languages, complex philosophical framework. Hundreds of people have tried. Scholars, professors, linguists. All of them failed. He says he's looking for someone with not just knowledge but understanding, someone who reads with their heart as much as their mind. Amara stared at that card for a long time. $2 million. It sounded like a fantasy. It sounded impossible. But something in her grandmother's voice whispered in her ear. Baby, words are power. She took the card. 3 days later, Amara stood outside a glass tower in downtown Baltimore, looking up at a building so tall it seemed to pierce the clouds. She was wearing her best outfit, which wasn't much. A simple black dress she'd bought at a thrift store. Shoes she'd polished until they shined. She felt small. She felt out of place. But she walked through those doors anyway. The lobby was all marble and gold, with a fountain in the center and people in expensive suits moving like they owned the air they breathed. Amara walked to the reception desk, handed over the card Mrs. Chen had given her, and said she was there to see Mr. Calloway about the reading challenge. The receptionist looked at her for a long moment, then picked up the phone. 10 minutes later, Amara was in an elevator climbing to the 45th floor. Her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. The doors opened to a massive office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city, and there, standing by the window, was Edward Calloway. He was in his 60s, tall and thin, with silver hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see right through people. He turned when she entered, looked her up and down, and something flickered across his face. Not dismissal, curiosity. "Miss Williams," he said, his voice smooth and controlled. "You're here for the document challenge." "Yes, sir," Amara said, trying to keep her voice steady. He walked to his desk, opened a drawer, and pulled out a folder. Inside was a single sheet of paper, yellowed with age, covered in text that looked like a puzzle of different languages and symbols. He set it on the desk between them. "This document," he said, "has stumped every expert. I've brought in linguists, historians, philosophers. They see words. They don't see meaning. I'm offering $2 million to anyone who can read this aloud, accurately, and explain what it truly means. You have one chance. Right now." Amara felt her mouth go dry. She looked at the document, and at first all she saw was chaos. But then she leaned closer. She let her eyes relax, and slowly patterns began to emerge. She recognized Latin, Old French, Greek, and woven between them, a philosophical structure she'd seen before. In that book from the library. She took a breath. "Can I have a moment to look at it?" "You have 5 minutes," he said, and stepped back. Amara bent over that document like it was the most important thing she'd ever seen. Because it was. She traced the lines with her finger. She whispered phrases under her breath. And piece by piece the meaning came together. It was a meditation on power and responsibility, on the voices of those pushed to the margins, on the moral obligation of those who have everything, to listen to those who have nothing. When the 5 minutes were up, Edward Calloway returned to the desk. "Well?" Amara looked up at him. "I can read it," she said quietly. "Then do so," she began. Her voice was soft at first, but it grew stronger with every line. She read the Latin with precision, the French with clarity, the Greek with understanding. And as she read, she didn't just translate. She interpreted. She explained the philosophy behind the words, the historical context, the deeper meaning that connected every phrase. When she finished, the room was silent. Edward Calloway stared at her, and for the first time, his controlled expression cracked. "How?" he said slowly. "Did you do that?" Amara met his eyes. "I read with more than my mind," she said. "I read with everything my grandmother taught me. That words aren't just information. They're truth. They're connection. And if you really listen, they'll tell you what people are too afraid to say out loud." He sat down, shook his head, almost smiled. 5 years, he said. Hundreds of applicants. And you're the first person to understand it. He reached into his desk, pulled out a check, and wrote $2 million across it. But before he handed it to her, he looked up. "I have a question for you, Miss Williams." "What?" "Will you do with this money?" Amara paused. She thought about her grandmother, about the library, about every person she'd ever met who had a voice but no one to hear it. "I'll use it to create something," she said. "A foundation. For people who've been told they don't matter. For voices that get ignored. I'll build a place where those voices can be heard." Edward Calloway handed her the check. Then he did something she didn't expect. He stood up, walked around the desk, and extended his hand. Not as a billionaire to someone he'd just given money to, but as one human being to another. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You've reminded me why I started this challenge in the first place. I wasn't looking for someone who could read words. I was looking for someone who understood what it means to truly listen." Amara took his hand, and in that moment she realized something powerful. This wasn't about a test. It wasn't even about the money. It was about a man who had everything, searching for proof that understanding still existed in the world, and she had given him that proof. Over the next year, Amara used that $2 million to start the Voices Heard Foundation. She opened a community center in West Baltimore, where people could take free classes in reading, writing, philosophy, and critical thinking. She hired teachers who cared. She created scholarships for young people who had the intelligence but not the opportunity, and she made sure that every single person who walked through those doors knew that their voice mattered. Edward Calloway became one of her biggest supporters, not just financially but personally. He visited the center, sat in on classes, listened to the students' stories, and one afternoon, as he and Amara stood watching a group of teenagers debate philosophy with a passion that lit up the room, he turned to her. "I've spent my entire life building empires," he said, "but this is the first time I've felt like I've built something that actually matters." Amara smiled. "That's because you're finally listening," she said. The story of the Billionaire's challenge spread. News outlets picked it up. People were inspired by it. But what they didn't always understand was the deeper truth underneath. That Amara didn't win that $2 million because she was the smartest person in the room. She won it because she understood something that intelligence alone could never teach. That reading isn't just about decoding words. It's about understanding the human heart behind them. Her grandmother had been right all along. Words are power, but only if we use them to connect. Only if we let them break down the walls between us and remind us that every voice, no matter how quiet, deserves to be heard. Today, the Voices Heard Foundation serves over 3,000 people a year. It's expanded to 3 cities, and every single student who walks through those doors is taught the same lesson Amara learned in that library: that their voice matters, that their story is important, and that the world is waiting to hear what they have to say. Sometimes the most powerful moments in life come when we realize that what we've been searching for has been inside us all along. Amara didn't need that $2 million to prove her worth. She already had everything she needed. The love of a grandmother who believed in her, the discipline to keep learning when the world told her she didn't belong, and the courage to stand in a room full of people who underestimated her and show them what true understanding looks like. If this story moved you, I hope you'll take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us about a time someone truly listened to you, or about a voice you think the world needs to hear, because just like Amara learned, every story matters. Every voice counts, and sometimes all it takes is one person willing to listen for everything to change. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, and remember, your voice, your story, your truth, it all has power. Don't ever let anyone tell you different.